The Thirsty Crow. There was once a crow. He lived in an old village. One day, he flew to another village to meet his friend, the wise pigeon. After having lunch with the pigeon, the crow decided to fly back home. As he was flying, he felt thirsty. After all, he was flying for a long time. But each time the crow looked for water, there was no pond or any water around. "Oh, I am so thirsty. How can I get some water?" thought the crow. The clever crow looked here and there as he flew. Suddenly, he saw a nice pitcher on the ground below. The pitcher was surrounded by fresh green grass. The crow was very happy to see that. "Ah, a pitcher! There must be some water in it," he thought. So he flew down to the pitcher. The crow then sat on the pitcher and looked inside. There was some water, but sadly, it was too low in the pitcher. The crow could not reach the water in the pitcher, no matter how much he tried. He tried again and again, putting his beak into the pitcher, but he just could not reach the water. He said to himself, "What a pity! The water is just in front of me, but I am not able to reach it. What should I do now?" Just as the crow was about to give up and fly away, some words he had heard from his friend the pigeon came to his mind. The wise pigeon had told the crow that he should always try to solve a problem and not give up. "What would my friend do if he was here?" thought the crow. Well, he would not have given up. Just then, a brilliant idea struck the crow. He looked around at the few pebbles lying about, and suddenly he caught it. "What an idea!" he exclaimed. He then picked up the pebbles one by one and dropped them into the pitcher. The water in the pitcher then rose higher and higher. He dropped more and more pebbles until the water rose so high that he was able to reach the water. He drank the water and flew away happily. Since then, everybody calls the crow Mr. Clever Crow. Cinderella. There was once a rich gentleman who had a pretty kind-hearted daughter named Ella. When his wife died, he married again. His new wife was a cruel and spiteful woman, and she had two daughters named Hilda and Gilda. The two girls were just like her mother. The mother disliked Cinderella and treated her like a servant, giving her the most disagreeable household chores. Ella worked till late into the night to please her mother and sisters. But instead of admiring her, they teased her in various ways. Not only this, they gave her very poor food after they themselves had sumptuous meals. She had to scrub floors, cook and sew from morning to evening. When she had finished her work, she would curl up next to the fireplace, almost in the cinders, which is how she became known as Cinderella. But even dressed in rags, she was 100 times more beautiful than her stepsisters in their magnificent clothes. The king's son was giving a ball and invited all the noble people in the area. The two sisters, along with Cinderella, were also invited. While she was helping them making their dresses, they laughed at her and asked if she would like to go to the ball. But Cinderella knew she could not go as she had shabby patched clothes and had nothing else to wear. The day of the ball arrived, and Cinderella kindly helped her stepsisters to dress. She polished their shoes, brushed their hair, and fastened their necklaces. As soon as the sisters had left for the ball, Cinderella burst into tears. I would love to wear a beautiful dress and to dance all night, she whispered to herself. Suddenly, Cinderella heard a voice. She looked up and saw a dear old lady, dressed in a silver gown and carrying a sparkling magic wand. I am your fairy grandmother, she smiled. And if you would like to go to the ball, you must do as I say. Go into the garden and fetch me a large pumpkin. Then go and find me a mouse trap. You will find 6 little mice in it who will make excellent horses. The fairy godmother trapped the pumpkin with her magic wand and it turned into a magnificent golden coach. Then she let the mice out of the trap and they were transformed into 6 prancing dappled grey horses with flowing manes and tails. Well, we have the coach and the horses to pull it, declared the fairy godmother. Now we must find the coachman. A passing rat was instantly turned into a whiskery old coachman, and for footmen she found 6 lizards hidden behind a watering can. No sooner had she touched them with her magic wand than they climbed up behind the coach, dressed in smart velvet uniforms. Now you can go to the ball, said the fairy godmother. But how could Cinderella go in such shabby clothes? The fairy godmother touched Cinderella's rags with her wand. Instantly, they were changed into a beautiful ball gown embroidered with gold and silver thread. And here is one last gift, said the fairy godmother. Put these slippers on, my child. She gave Cinderella a perfect pair of pretty glass slippers. Dressed like a princess, Cinderella climbed happily onto the coach. Now, don't stay too late, her fairy godmother warned. On the stroke of midnight, my magic will run out and all will be as it was. This coach will change back to a pumpkin, the horse will become mice, the coachman will be a rat, and these 5 footmen will change to lizards. I promise, cried Cinderella, as the coachman gathered up the reins. At the palace, Cinderella was greeted like a princess, but no one knew who she was. The prince only had eyes for her. The beautiful stranger who danced so gracefully, and he would not dance with anyone else. The couple danced so gracefully that the other guests started watching them. Who is she? Where did she come from? These questions were on everyone's lips. As for Cinderella, she had not forgotten her fairy godmother's warning, but she was very sad to hear the clock strike 11:45. She hurried away from the glittering ballroom. She ran down the stairs without even saying goodbye to the prince. As she fled, she tripped, leaving behind one of her tiny glass slippers. The prince raced after her, but when she reached the staircase, there was no trace of his lovely princess. All he found was one of her tiny glass slippers. As the clock struck midnight, poor Cinderella stood outside the palace, dressed in her rags again. But the magic had not quite all gone. On her foot was the other glass slipper. Shortly afterwards, the prince announced that he would marry. But he would marry the girl whose tiny glass slipper he had found on the stairs, even if he had no search far and wide for her. Each and every house must be visited, and every girl must be given a chance to try the glass slippers on, he commanded his servants. All the ladies of the court tried the slipper on, and when a royal servant came to Cinderella's home, her cruel stepsisters tried it on, but in vain. Their feet were too big. When Cinderella asked to try the glass slipper on, her sisters laughed at her. "The prince would never marry you," they cackled. But the prince's servant invited her to sit down and slip it on her foot. Lo, it fitted perfectly. The sisters were astonished when Cinderella put on the second slipper, which she had kept hidden away. They begged her to forgive them for being so mean, which of course she did. Then she was taken to the prince, and soon after they were married with stately pomp and show. Chimpu and the Red Cap. Chimpu was a monkey. He was very naughty. He had a long tail. One day, he was sitting on a tree. He saw a man. The man had a red cap on his head. The man was tired. He sat down under the tree. After some time, he went to sleep. Chimpu wanted the red cap. He came down slowly and picked up some stones. Then he went up the tree. He threw a stone at the man's head. Done! The stone hit the man. The man woke up. He saw the monkey. He shouted, "Run away, monkey!" Chimpu threw more stones. The man got angry. He took off his red cap. He threw the red cap at Chimpu. This was what Chimpu wanted. He caught the cap. He put the cap on his head and ran away. "Thank you, sir," he said. A shepherd boy and the wolf. In a village located at the foothills of a mountain, there lived a shepherd boy. Every day, he used to take his sheep for grazing on the hills. One day, to get rid of his boredom, he thought of a trick. He stood on a rock and shouted, "Help! Help! A wolf is here!" The villagers heard his shouts for help. They at once left their work and ran towards the hill, carrying sticks. But on reaching there, they saw that the sheep were grazing quietly. They asked the shepherd, "Where is the wolf?" "He ran away on seeing you all," he said. Again, after a few days, he started shouting, "The wolf is here! Help! Help!" This time, too, the villagers came to his rescue, but they did not find any wolf. But one day, a wolf actually arrived there. He started chasing and killing the sheep. The shepherd shouted for help again and again. But by this time, the villagers had become tired of his tricks. They said, "The boy is trying to fool us again." So nobody went to help the shepherd. Now, the shepherd realized his mistake, but it was too late. This is the end of the story.